Good morning, everybody. It's May 15, 2024 for our regular City Commission meeting this morning. Let's start with roll call, please.
Mayor Skidmore,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Allen,
Present.
Commissioner Kaler,
Present.
Commissioner Clayton,
Present.
and Commissioner Crowley.
Present.
Wonderful. We're all here and we have a quorum, so I'm going to welcome everybody in the gallery here as well as watching on some form of social media. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance followed by the invocation by Dakota Smith if he shows up, but if not, it'll be me. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And let's pray. Father in heaven, we give you thanks for this special time we can gather here today. We just thank you for the freedoms of this country and this community where we can gather here and conduct the city's business. We always ask for your guidance and direction whenever we make these decisions, and we never want to pretend like we can do this on our own, but with your guidance, we know they'll be right. And Lord, I give you thanks for the many graduations going on this past week and a half. It's such a great thing to see these young people accomplishing this goal of graduation. We just pray you'll guide and direct each and every one of them in their future endeavors. And we also thank you, Lord, for our city and for all of our employees. They're dedicated people that serve every day, and we want to give you thanks for them, ask you to bless each of them and their families. We just commit this time to you in Christ's name. Amen. Okay. And I guess we'll start this morning's meeting with any public comments. Do we have any?
We have none registered.
Okay, great, thanks. We'll move on to the item number 7. We've got some appointments and recognitions, I guess recognition today. So let's start with that recognition of Winter Ziegler, Water Production, for her successful completion of the Kansas Rural Water Association Apprenticeship Program. Utilities Director Riney and also Monica Wirtz, Apprenticeship Program Director for Kansas Rural Water Association, will be here to present.
Mayor, Commissioners, thank you today for letting us be here. This is pretty exciting stuff. We're happy to be doing this. Winter's been with us a few years. She's grade 4 operator. She's gone through the Kansas Rural Water Association's 2-year apprenticeship program. And Monica Wirtz, who is the director of that program, is here to present Winter with her certificate, and I'm going to let them speak.
Thank you for having me here today. I'm here on behalf of the Kansas Rural Water Association to present this certificate to Winter Ziegler. Just a little bit about our program. It is, as Dan said, about a 2-year program for training water and wastewater operators. It requires 4,000 hours of on-the-job training with oversight from an on-site mentor, which we had Scott Sneathen that served in that role, so I wanted to add a thank you to Scott for that. It also requires 288 hours of a set curriculum of classes, and so Winter successfully completed all of those requirements. She was also recognized at our annual conference that we held at the end of March. We had 3 apprenticeship graduates that we recognized there. So today I have a completion certificate from the state of Kansas. It's signed by Kansas Governor Laura Kelly, as well as David Tolan, the secretary, also Elmer Ronnebaum, our general manager. So at this time, I'd like to present this certificate to Winter.
Absolutely.
And congratulations.
Winter, if you certainly want to say a few comments, you're welcome to. Oh. You were prepared, were you?
No,
you
but
didn't get
thank
my
you.
memo. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Well, that's important too. Well, let me just say how important it is to always further educate our staff. I never want to tell someone no if they want to further their education in some way, some form in their field of study and their field of expertise. And so I know they don't hand these certificates out just to anybody. You've got to go through a lot of work to get those, obviously. And so I just want to further the congratulations to you, Winter, and many years of success. And I hope you stay here until you're as old as me. So, okay. Hope you do. Thank you very much. Thank you. And also, thank you for coming from the state of Kansas for that, too. So I appreciate you being here to present that. So thanks a lot. At this time, I'd like to look at the consent agenda. We've had the minutes from the May 8th, 24 commission meeting. Do we have an approval for the agenda?
So moved.
There's a second.
Second.
There's a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Very good. We're good on that one. Declaration. At this time, I'd like to give the commissioners a chance to declare any conflict or communication they've had that might influence their ability to consider today's issues impartially. Hearing none, we'll go on to 10, which is no unfinished business, so we'll go on to new business.
Item A, review of 2025 operating budget wastewater fund.
Review the wastewater utility, which includes collection and treatment. And we have our finance director, Landis, to present this. Good.
Thank you. I might just start with a short recap of where we are in the budget process. So last week, we really kicked off our budget process with a short review of what that process looks like, the purpose behind putting together the budget, what it is that you'll have in front of you over the next several weeks for each fund. And then we also reviewed the stormwater fund last week. And so this week, we'll be reviewing the wastewater fund, and next week, the electric fund. So one note I made for this slide is that I think that this fund it comes to you in many different names. So I'm sure that you've heard wastewater, sewer, sanitary sewer, water reclamation. All of those things are the same utility fund, but there are different purposes within the fund and things that they're able to accomplish, that this crew accomplishes. So they collect, treat, and dispose of wastewater from homes, businesses, and industries, protect public health and the environment by managing wastewater safely, preventing contamination of water sources and ensuring compliance with all of the regulations, and then operating and maintaining the wastewater treatment infrastructure, which includes the plant. The wastewater utility rate structure was adopted, the last resolution that included the new rates was adopted last year in 2023 on January 18th. And what you have on the screen in front of you is the 2025 rates. And at that time, we did do a 5-year look at the utility overall to plan ahead for future capital improvements that needed to be accomplished, as well as operational costs, and determined at that time that we would increase the base charge by $1 the first year and $2 each additional year, and then a 5% annual rate charge increase. So what you have in your revenue cycle, when you see those revenue numbers, that's included for not just last year, this year, and the upcoming years. The other, one piece I think that's important here is residential and commercial usage is billed differently. So residential is based off of your winter water use average, and that's for the months of December through March. And those are the months that we expect that you're probably using less water. Yes, there are exceptions to the rule. Yes, we do take a look at those when those events happen that we may not expect to have happened. But then all of your mostly commercial and industrial clients or customers are billed based on their actual water usage. We call that a related charge monthly. One more point to make. When you're looking at the revenues and expenditures overall in 2024, the expiration of the debt related to the surcharge that is on the wastewater utility, both of those things will go away. So in 2001, we adopted the ordinance 3381. It created a monthly surcharge for our customers, and it was used to help pay down the debt for the current treatment plant that was put in place, and that debt will be paid off finally in October of 2024, and this ordinance would then be caused to expire that surcharge as well. So you'll see a revenue decrease and a similar expenditure decrease in 2024 when we get to those slides as well. So we really focus on two divisions in this wastewater utility. And the very first one that we want to talk about is collection. And our collection system, they maintain 75 miles of gravity sewer lines and 10 miles of sewer force mains. They have 6 lift stations north of the river and 5 lift stations south of the river. And they use TV inspection cameras to look at those lines to try and determine and try to ward off any of those issues that might pop up with any of those lines ahead of time. In 2008, they did have a master plan study done, and that it did indicate that they needed to focus more on their inflow and infiltration removal, which you'll see we'll talk about a little bit here, and then also replacement of the 3 interceptors, which is the west side, east side, and the central interceptor. The east side was completed in 2015, and that is one of the pieces of debt that you see in our expenditure lines currently. And the west side is in your replacement of the west side interceptor is in the CIP to begin with a 2026 design and then construction in the years to follow with the plan to long-term finance that project as well. In your 2025 budget, there's a couple of items to highlight. There is a backhoe replacement for a 2013 model, and then we did what I just mentioned about the master plan recommendation from 2008. They're increasing those funds both in 25 and 26 to be able to accomplish more of the I&I, or the inflow and infiltration removal. And then also in 2026, you'll see that there is some additional inventory dollars budgeted for pipe replacement as needed.
Now, Melanie, on that backhoe replacement, I assume we're using cash on that, is that correct? Instead of financing, which
Yes.
I think it's probably a good idea with rates the way they are. Good.
Yes,
Good
yes.
choice.
For our reclamation division, this treatment plant has been operational since 2004, which I mentioned, and it is an extended aeration activated sludge facility containing multiple compartments with a ditch configuration. I read that directly from the memo and the narrative that they wrote, just so you know. So if you have questions about that, they are going to have to help me answer those questions. But it does allow up to 2.68 million gallons per day of flow capacity, and that is a double capacity from the previous plant. And then they accomplished disinfection with a UV lighting system. Recently, we did replace that UV disinfection system underneath of the ARPA funding, which within the last year. And then in 2017, they did have a plant evaluation study done, which indicated that both Rockwood Lift Station and the Cottonwood Lift Station needed to be replaced. And those 2 projects have been accomplished, one with the recent base funding.
On that capacity, I guess I'm kind of curious, do we have a population maximum, we think, with what our new capacity is now? Or is that based on population or based on hookups? And I don't know how that works exactly, but.
The rule of thumb math is 100
Yeah, need to come up to that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The rule of thumb is 100 gallons per day per person.
Okay. So we have,
Room for 26,000 people.
so we got plenty, okay, we got plenty
Yeah.
of room to grow then. That's good news without having to upgrade. Very good. Good choice. All right, thanks.
All right, so on this slide and in your packet, you have all of the same information. There's a lot more detail in the packet between the narrative and the line item detail and summary. But as you can see here, the CIP, well, not on this slide, but we've talked about previously in our current CIP, we do have that west side sewer interceptor. That's a 2026 design, which is budgeted at $750,000 with a $7.5 million construction of that sewer interceptor beginning in 2027. We'll plan to long-term finance that after the construction's complete. It does also include the Pin Oak Pump Station in 2025 currently for approximately $100,000. If budget and cash allows, we may try to move that project up slightly if possible. And then also the plant upgrades, which we discussed there, are also in the CIP that is budgeted for 2025 as well.
Is,
Go ahead.
question for you. Is
Yes.
the Pin Oak station, is it looking to be, is it going to be enlarged? Is it going to be, is the capacity going to be enlarged or anything, or it's just a replacement of the pump station? Pardon me.
Yeah, it would just be replacing what's in
Okay,
place.
so we're not replacing it with a bigger system? It's
No,
just
no,
the
it-
same
it-
system, and
it
it's
has-
working
yeah.
appropriately?
Yes, it has some adequate room to grow, and based on the flow that it gets, it's kind of like when we did Rockwood a year ago. Rockwood's full. And the area that serves Pin Oak is virtually full. So there's not a need to be worried about, a big housing development that would load into it.
Okay, so there's nothing to the south that would impact the Pin Oak station? I mean, there's a little bit of vacant land and stuff like
Yeah,
that
and
that could
there's-
grow, and it's
there's-
not a tremendous amount of
Yeah,
houses, but...
yeah, and the current station
Can
would
handle
be
that
adequate in that,
capacity?
yeah. Yeah, so, yeah, the replacement would be pretty much identical, replacing what's there.
I guess that current station is about 30 years old, right? Or when is it, 95 or 94?
Yeah, I'm getting this, yeah.
Okay. I think I remember
30
that.
years ago?
Well, believe it or not, yeah. I hate
Yeah.
to think, admit that, but you're
Ouch.
right. But yeah, I think it's probably,
Yeah,
is that
it's,
about the useful life?
it has reached its
That's what I wondered about.
useful life, yeah. It's at the point now with technology being what it is in the pump industry that we're really getting to the point where finding repair parts and replacement parts are beginning to get sketchy.
Sure, I understand that too. Good, thanks. And Melanie, on this slide here, I just had to ask a question about the two lines. That kind of concerns me when they're going divergently like that. Is there some remedy for that, or do we need to address that?
Well, we've talked about that a little bit in that with our team that when we reviewed this, and really it's because we are paying cash for those three, for two of the three CIP projects right up front, and then also paying cash for the replacement of that backhoe. Unfortunately, it does take a while for rate increases to help generate more revenue over time. And when you have larger expenditures that need to happen timely, this is what happens, right? You see a dip in your fund balance overall. I will say that I am not as concerned about it falling off over the 28 and 29 because we did not spend a whole lot of time focusing on what those out years look like. And then in addition to our current rate structure and rate increases only go through 2027. So as your expenditures then start to go back up after 27 and your rates stay the same, your fund balance will continue to drop. So again, this is our constant review that we're doing of the financials and maybe even, coming back to you with a review of how that utility rate structure looks like for this overall.
Very good, thank you.
Sure. Also included in these numbers, I might mention, is we have two current debt structures, which I mentioned one, which is the Eastside Interceptor Original, which that does pay off in 2033. And then also we have a current lease purchase that pays off in 2028 for the camera van. And we do include, and we did include in here in our 25 and our 26 proposed, and so you should see that in that wastewater non-operating line. It does have included in there, because these are budget numbers, not necessarily expected expenditure numbers, we included a reserve for those unanticipated things that could happen during the year. And I know we had a little bit of this conversation last week on stormwater, the importance of having that in there for those unexpected things. These are utilities, and there are lots of lines and lots of things that can go wrong that you have zero control over. And we need to make sure that we're able to make those repairs when needed, make sure that we continue our in addition to being able to continue our maintenance program that we already have in place, as opposed to stopping a maintenance program to have to stop and repair something that wasn't anticipated. So building in a reserve does not mean that you're actually going to spend those in each year. So we did try to reflect that in our beginning fund balance, and we've added those back. But that, when we do see the state budget put together all together, you will see that's been included in our capital improvement line. With that, I don't have any other notes or slides for you, but we are all here for discussion and questions you might have. And I really want to thank this team for putting together everything. They've put together the narratives and the budget highlights, and they went through all of the line item details as we have in every other division. and I appreciate all the work that they've put in. It's been a lot of work for them, and they've done a really good job.
And you're just referring to questions on the collection only right now, right?
Any questions you have for the entire utility?
Okay.
So we have both. Yeah, we have both of the collection division, the treatment personnel. They're all here. They're here, ready for all of your questions.
Maybe we should ask them, what do you think we should know that we don't know?
Yeah, there we go.
Does anybody want to stand up and say something?
Good question.
Regarding the budget, maybe it's what I should say.
They'd like more.
Well, we all would.
Mayor, Commissioners, thanks for having us today. I would like to highlight the fact that earlier we celebrated Winter on the water side for her apprenticeship. In the budget in 2025, we are looking to possibly start a in-house apprenticeship program in conjunction with KRWA. That program would start on the wastewater side, and that would allow us to get into the schools every year and promote our apprenticeship program, which in turn is a 2-year program, which would give our folks a chance to either stay on board here or go to another utility that we all know is struggling to find operators. So 2025, we have budgeted hopeful for the wastewater, and 2026, starting on the water side. So I just kind of wanted to give that little.
Do individuals who work for your department, in your department, Scott, do they need to be 18? Okay. Yes, they do. Good. Okay, just not, you know.
Yep. So we'll be reaching out to seniors, and we're primarily going to reach out to those folks that may not know what they want to do after high school,
Absolutely.
and just really don't know where their career is going to take them. So we want to give them the opportunity to come in, tour the facilities, and see if maybe that's something they want to do in the future.
So we just sent over 200 kids across the stage on Saturday at graduation, and I'm saying that there's probably a handful of those that do not know. In fact, probably a lot. Some days I don't know what I want to do when I grow up, so, and I didn't just graduate. But if that is the case and they didn't have a chance to be a part of this program, but they really want to know kind of what the water department is about or water reclamation is about, can they call and say, hey, I'd like to just learn more about it, or can I take a tour? I'm a citizen.
Most definitely.
Okay.
Yep, we are open to all those things. We just recently finished up our work in water internship. We had one 2 years ago, I believe. We didn't have anybody sign up this year, but that has been a summer internship, so they get a little small taste of it in each division. But we wanted to expand that to give them a more robust challenge in each department.
Good.
Thank you.
Great development.
I did have a question on I guess, our number, page 13, down in the 2025 proposed budget. We got the $130,000 for the VFD upgrade. It says it has a lifespan of 20 years, and currently it's operating, but starting to show some signs of needing replacement. And so I don't know if this piece of equipment, is this something that if it fails, we're in an oh-no situation, we need to be more preventative, or because of our strong and reliable maintenance department to keeping things going longer than they have a useful life, is this something we could wait a year or two on?
First off, thank you for recognizing that last statement. And that is really a fact. To get to the bottom of your question, would we be out of business if these things failed? We can operate in manual mode without the VFDs, without the PLC, but it would be a bit more difficult. A lot more labor intensive.
And for the folks at home, I think it would be incumbent upon us to share that what we're talking about is equipment that slowly runs up pumps and machinery and then slowly takes it down, as opposed to all on and all off, which degrades the life of the machine because you're running it at 100% as soon as you turn it on, as opposed to easing into it. So it's kind of like stretching your legs before you go for a run.
Oh my, that helps, thanks. Thanks. And I want to say too, I think for our city to base the water rates on December to March when we're not watering our lawns or our gardens or washing our cars or anything like that. And that's a good thing. I don't know if the community appreciates that enough. I don't know how other communities do it, if they do it year round. But I think by picking those months, I think we're giving our citizens an advantage in some way financially to not be, charging them more than necessary perhaps for these different utility rates. Would you
I
agree
agree.
with that?
I agree.
Okay. Well, any other questions anyone else have? I've got a couple more, but I don't want to jump ahead of anybody here. I noticed on page 15, health insurance went up, is planned to go up quite a bit from 61,000 this year to 99,000. That's about a 60% increase. Is that rates are going higher, we got more people, or what's the reason for that?
We do have indication that our health insurance rates are going to increase, actually approximately 29%. So we've built those into our budget estimates within each division that has personnel included.
Okay, well, this is about a 60% increase, but then again, that if it's budgeted, proposed, not necessarily expensed, but I guess that's part of the process. You want to make sure that number looked accurate in there.
I will go back and double check that.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
And I don't think I had any more questions on these, but thanks for all the numbers.
You betcha.
Made his day.
Yeah.
I did just want to call out, I kind of went through and looking at, if we're doing 100, or 1.03 million gallons a day, 375 million gallons a year, for 3.2 million, we're doing 115 gallons per dollar. So,
Wow.
rough math, obviously, I'm not holding anyone to that, but it's pretty amazing when you really think about the amount of waste that we're able to get through for that amount of money. I know I appreciate when I go home and I have that service, so we really appreciate all that you guys do.
And each time I go to Indy, I'm also thankful we have this underground service, so thank you all for that. Believe me, it's kind of hard to go into a restaurant and eat when you got to step over the sewer, open sewer, I should say, but no wonder I lose weight every time I go. Anyway, any other questions? We're good?
No?
No?
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Good job. And I guess we'll go on to, where are we at here? Project updates?
Honorable Mayor and Commission, we'll give you a rundown over this month's activities within our capital projects going on throughout the city. We want to start off, though, with what we have currently on the horizon, which includes our City Hall HVAC system, the boiler at the OMA, and the modernization for the commission chambers. And we have completed the law enforcement roof at the Law Enforcement Center earlier this year. And then some of these are funded through a 2022 issuance that was completed for, or was renewed for these improvements, including a small contingency. We'll start off with the City Hall security upgrade, and just want to highlight that we're doing touch-ups and that it's substantially complete, and we'll be looking to process the final invoicing, and we'll have this on next month's, and then hopefully it'll be transitioned over to the completed project slide for the coming year. And this right here is the Mulberry and Dundee Street intersection project that the stormwater culvert there is continually degraded and damaged as the turn radius here is taken out with the truck traffic. And so what this will do is improve the intersection and also improve the flow line for the ditch system there. It'll be an improved ditch rather than the collection box, and also that turn radius will be widened. But again, we're very early on and still in the mobilization phase.
I did drive by that intersection just the other day and noticed how they're starting to work on it, looks like, and so I'm glad to see that done. And I'm sure the intersection was built when Calmar or was bought a truck back then, maybe doing 2 or 3 trucks a day now.
It's a residential design for low traffic,
Yeah.
low volume, low weight. So
Sure.
it's got 3 strikes going against it
Yeah.
already.
Says long overdue, I'd say, but that's good we're doing it.
And this is our K68 for the corridor management plan and our access management. And that's, in fact, we just received the hopefully final draft this morning. And so we'll be turning that around, and we anticipate presenting the final presentation to the City Commission in June. And then our taxiway reconstruction, which will be funded 95% through federal pass-through dollars thanks to KDOT's Aviation Fund, and 5% is our local funds, and those percentages are established by the FAA and federal regulations. So we're looking at a total of about $200,000 for the design, and then once that's done, we'll go to bid for construction. And so you'll see a new taxiway when you're out for either the Aviation Day or for one of the monthly breakfasts.
So, but this has not happened yet, is what?
No, it's not,
But
because
we've spent
it was
93% of the budget?
It was no, we have,
Am I wrong here?
yes,
Where it says all the way on the right?
because this is the design phase.
Okay.
So there's been 93% expended of the nearly 200,000 for the design. Then once that's completed, we'll go forward with the construction portion, which is likely to be, several million, probably 2 million or more for that. The splash pad, and you can see in the lower right-hand corner, the play features being installed there, and everything's essentially complete, and now we're just roughing in and doing kind of final grade work, and we'll put some sod down next to that, and we've got a water plan in place to make sure that it's sufficiently irrigated for the roots to hold there, and we will look at hopefully having that open here in the not too distant future here, well before the Memorial Day holiday.
That's good.
Our playground equipment upgrade, that will begin the week following the 4th of July. And we had anticipated starting it sooner, but given the high volume traffic during that holiday period, we delayed it until afterwards so that folks that are in the park during that time frame will be able to have access to playground equipment before the upgrade takes place.
And as a reminder, I mean, we already have this playground equipment. We're not waiting on the equipment to arrive, right?
Correct. We have
Yes.
everything ready to go at
Okay.
this stage,
Just
with the
ready.
exception of the funding that we received from the state for the surface.
Mm-hmm.
We received a fractional contribution for that. And so, once that's ready to go, we can begin immediately. But again, we delayed that so that it wouldn't be in process while the Independence Day holiday is in observance.
And it's lots of stuff going on in that park.
Exactly.
It's exciting.
Yes.
Then the water tower, which is, looks like it's done, but much the same way with the duck swimming around, you don't see the work that's going on under the surface. And so now all the piping and connections and the upgrades to the facility are taking place. And by facility, I mean the rollover there for the well, that's the generator, but for the water plant. And for the generator here, we have our lift station, and we are looking forward to moving forward as the bid was received and opened it'll be this afternoon. So we'll see how that goes. The gas line, this is KGS, Kansas Gas Service Project that the city's funding to serve Proximity Park. And so it's essentially complete. And I just want to note that we haven't received the invoice payment portion for that, so that when that occurs, we'll process that, and it's a reimbursement, so we'll see that. Our AMI meters, we don't have anything to report. It's a year-long supply chain, and much as you know from the meters that were already ordered arrived. Actually, I want to say it was 15 months. So we're hopeful that we'll be able to begin installation in the spring of '25. And then our lift station upgrades for the sewer pumps there, which we have. If there are no questions on that, we'll move on to our water line at Elm and 17th, from 17th to 19th, which is in final process at this stage. So we expect that to be completed and compacted and settled here shortly. Because it does take about 6 weeks for the ground to fully settle. So you want to make sure that that occurs and then do any sort of light stabilization on top of that following. So, and then we're currently in the review, which we should have for you forthcoming, the evaluation of our water treatment facility for both its capacity and future needs. And this is our circuits 8 and 10, which we're currently in the process for taking it to the next level, and in making improvements to the substation as well, and then creating another reserve circuit that allowed us to be able to separate those in its early concept when we were having the issues on Circuit 8 that were adversely impacting Circuit 10. Now, we had a recent outage that was due to a lightning strike on the main line, and you might have seen that on Facebook. And so we're actively trying to attempt to be proactive on the extent of the outage and the number impacted and what that turnaround time is, as we truly believe that bad news is better than no news. So we'll continue that going forward. Hopefully it's not needed. Do you have any questions for myself or the team at this point?
On the Proximity Park water tower one, for that 335 for the water plant pumps, is that going to still be beneath this project, or is that going to kind of get pulled out to its own capital improvement project?
We are separating those
Oh, separate.
as a separate project. Go ahead,
As
Director
far as
Landis.
the grant reporting is concerned, it's all one project, but as far as reporting to you and being able to show what's being accomplished with those
Separating.
dollars, they'll be separate.
Okay.
And that's one thing to note too, is, you know, we have a series. We got the base grant and the sales tax that are the contributing factors, as well as some local contributions within the fund balance that helped set the stage.
That's great. Any other questions anybody have? Very thorough report.
Well, and we said it's an evolution, and so you'll see some refinements going forward, and that was for our Tuesday alignment meeting. We were looking at ways that we could better annotate what we said would be happening versus what actually happened so that it'll be easier to track. So next month, you might see a little bit different layout, but that's what our intent is here.
And just for the public to be aware, we're calling it the Proximity Park Water Tower only because where it's located, not for the usage, and so it's used all over town, so it's not just for Proximity Park. I just want to clarify that, so good.
And we will be educating early and often once that comes online, because it could stir up sedimentation and the flow for years of buildup. It occurs, iron manganese, which is kind of a brownish orangish color that can occur when you change the flow on something, when it's been flowing one direction and suddenly certain parts of the area, it'll be going the other way. So we want to make folks aware of what's happening and why they'll see folks flushing hydrants and where that's going to occur. And so we hope to be able to utilize our, and we'll have a more extensive report on the city's new communications platform for text messaging as a separate line item, but we've got and are encouraging folks to sign up for that. But we'll be utilizing that, and we can use it specifically in zones, not just predetermined, but even by utilizing mapping to determine who gets those notifications. So we'll be able to provide fairly real-time information when we notice that there will be a situation occurring there, so we can keep folks ahead, and you're not doing a load of whites when we're asking you not to avoid doing laundry if you can avoid it, just to reduce the potential for something occurring.
Good idea. All right. Thank you, Brian. Any other questions anybody have?
I wanted to commend our city manager for implementing the capital project update. And I think that it is so important that citizens know where we're at with projects. And there's only 5 of us here, and there's only so many staff members for the city of Ottawa who can reach every single citizen to tell them what's going on with the project. But this is a great way for people to understand where it is that their money is going and that we're working for them and where we are at on projects. So if you have questions or you're wondering where we're at, this is a great document to review and to look at, so that citizens know exactly what is happening within our community.
Well, thank you, and obviously this couldn't be done without our finance staff and the folks that are in here today, because it's their projects and they're the ones that put it together. So I'm grateful to work with them.
Very good. Thanks, Brian. I guess we can move on then to presentation on homelessness. We're going to review the possible approaches to the local and national homelessness crisis. And so it looks like Director Neese is going to be talking about this for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and Commissioners. Thanks for this opportunity to speak with you. I do so with some trepidation. This is a big national crisis. But my goal each day is to contribute to a more beautiful and prosperous future for Ottawa. And so I'm grateful to have been tasked with working on this by the city manager. I want to recognize that people have their own experiences and convictions about this topic. And I hope that we can hold at least 2 perspectives, and I think probably a lot more, but at least 2 perspectives in tension as we do this work. Some of the manifestations that we've seen over the last couple of months of homelessness in our community, trash, litter, drug paraphernalia, human suffering, these all cause our neighbors distress. And then on the other hand, our homeless neighbors are also experiencing distress. And so those are 2 things that we want to be considering. Their homelessness is traumatic for them and prevents them from fully participating in building our community's prosperity. And I don't know that I can develop that idea adequately, but we want to see our city grow, right? We want to see more people contribute to our prosperity. And some folks who could be contributing to our prosperity are currently not doing that in their full measure because of a lack of adequate housing. I provided some background to you in my last quarterly report. that has informed what you see before you in your agenda report and then in this report. I also attended the Kansas Statewide Homelessness Coalition meeting in Lawrence in April, together with folks from Blessing Box and Hope House, and that informs this presentation. So what I hope we can be working towards as a community would be a possible future where homelessness is rare, brief, and non-reoccurring. So this is a presentation for information. There's no action recommended at this time. For background, this is a metaphor that that was talked about in Lawrence at that conference, and it's a little bit clumsy, but hopefully you can hang with me on it. So we've got a river, and we might imagine that we have you're having a picnic or whatever, and there's babies flailing about in the river, and you say, "Oh my goodness, let's jump in and save those babies." And then somebody says, "Hey, wait, what's going on upriver? Who's throwing babies in the river?" And so that's part of how I want us to frame our conversation about homelessness. So we've got here's our river, and upstream we've got the precariously housed. And these are folks, and I went into some detail in the agenda report, but these are folks who there's just more month than money. Maybe their rent is too high, or they got into a mortgage that they can't afford. They experience some crisis, and it could be a big crisis or a little crisis. And depending on what your financial situation is, a little crisis could really throw you out of housing, at least temporarily. Or some sort of a family crisis, right? The death of somebody. You were living with your father, and he dies, and suddenly there's a lot of uncertainty about what your housing options are, or some sort of a relational breakdown or a divorce. Could all be precipitating events to you needing to find other housing. And if you don't have money, then you're unhoused, and you end up couch surfing. Or you're living in your car, you're living in a tent, and probably doing everything you can to be invisible. There's probably a lot of shame involved, and you are still going to work, and still trying to make make life work. And then you have the acutely homeless, and I think a lot of our acutely homeless are probably folks who have, they started out precariously housed, and there's just been no safety net that caught them. And that is a series of traumatic events, and that trauma it leaves wounds, right? There's other folks who may have had very early trauma in their lives, and whether it's mental illness or substance abuse disorders, that it makes it very difficult for them to be housed. And then the chronically homeless are folks who've either been homeless at least 12 months, or they have been repeatedly homeless while experiencing a disabling condition. And that's a HUD definition for chronic homelessness. The big cause here, so we can talk about family breakdown or trauma or substance abuse. The big cause in the literature that I'm reading, though, is it's a housing problem. We don't have adequate affordable housing. That is nationally true, and I believe it's true locally. And when I'm talking about affordable housing, and I imagine that this is something that you all are well versed in, but when we're talking about affordable housing, often we're talking about affordable for folks who make the median wage in town, right? Well, and that's a very important segment of housing. And often we might refer to that as workforce housing. When you're thinking about folks who are having great difficulty making ends meet, we're talking about a different definition of affordable housing, right? And so we aim generally, and when you're looking at various HUD programs, you're aiming at making sure that folks' housing costs are less or at or below, excuse me, at or below 30% of their income. And so that means that for the very low income, we have to figure out some sort of subsidy in order for them to have adequate housing. ECAN is a fantastic provider of this sort of subsidized housing. They do that in 2 primary routes. They have 24 units that they own outright. My impression, and I'm please, I look forward to being corrected if this isn't other folks' impression, but my impression is that that is well-maintained housing, that their tenants are well-served by that housing. They also have 75 vouchers, housing choice vouchers, and I believe it's the same program that I would know as Section 8 housing, which again is guaranteed rental income to a landlord. It aims to keep rent at out-of-pocket cost at 30%. And there is an inspection process that means that those households have good standard rental housing. I want to highlight part of what a lot of folks would attribute our national problem to. With SNAP benefits, if you income qualifies for SNAP benefits, you receive those benefits. With housing choice vouchers, it is limited by the number of vouchers, and there's a calculation that I don't know that I certainly don't understand it today, but it's limited by the number of vouchers. So for every 5 households who qualify for a housing voucher nationally, 1 household receives one. And so that helps, I think, to provide some light to why we have such a problem housing some of our neighbors. I have this chart in front of us, and I don't want ECAN or FRETSA to say, wait, we have not said we'll do that. I know they have not said they would do this. They are already good providers of 2 of the kinds of housing that we need. ECAN has these 99 units. We need about, I would think, another 70 units of similar housing, whether that's ECAN that's providing it through their 2 methods, or whether it would be another organization that would step forward and say, we want to do that. It is a kind of a funny dance on the voucher side. So I think there's a national limit on how many vouchers. Locally, you have to have landlords who will take them. You have to have tenants who qualify, and ECAN can't say, well, we've met both of those requirements. We need another 100 vouchers. It doesn't work that way. They can only increase their voucher count so much per year, and so that is a long-term solution on the voucher side.
Director Neese, I want to make sure on that 70. So how did you come to that?
Yeah. So we believe, working with the police department, that we have between 10 and 30 acute or chronic homeless.
Okay.
And so I found a ratio that would suggest that that would be 15 to 20% of our total homeless population, including the precariously housed. So that's, it's not great data. It is sort of directional data, I think.
Okay.
Sorry, on that, could you also, what is FRETSA? I think a lot of people are probably familiar with ECAN, but.
FRETSA was set up by the Roseberry estate. It is 2 mobile homes, and it's operated by a board. And some of the same folks that you would know from other organizations serve on that board. But for example, Michelle Graff from Hope House serves on that board.
And my predecessor.
Yes. Yep.
Rich Neinstead is as well.
Yep.
And that's a Ottawa specific or a local?
Yeah. It is. Those 2 mobile home units are here in town, and it is its own entity. When you think about the need, they then are, they have a very targeted program. And so in order to live in a FRETSA trailer, you must have a job. And, in the literature, right, it is an interesting dance of how do you get a job if you don't have a safe, secure place to live? But when trying to navigate, how do we have a very limited resource of this very affordable housing right now. How do we share that out? And so FRETSA has said, well, we're going to start with folks who have employment, and it's they are pretty intensely case managed, and so that's a good program. It's very different or somewhat different from what we would expect to see as an appropriate response to acute or chronic homelessness. For acute or chronic homelessness, we would expect, looking at the national literature, to see no barrier permanent supportive housing that says you have whatever things going on in your life that you have going on, and we think that you need a safe, secure place to sleep in order to get life together. And some folks, some folks are going to get that support, and who knows what sort of wonderful life they'll build from that. Other folks, it will be a dramatic, wonderful change in their life for them to have a safe, secure place to live, and that that may be what it is. But I that aligns with what I believe our community's values are. Just a map here of where the ECAN owned units are in town, and what I love about this map is that you can see they're woven throughout the community, which is great. We from a community development perspective, we don't really want to see poverty in one part of town. You want to see folks with means and without means mixing and encouraging each other, and so that's what we have. So certainly if you read my agenda report, or hopefully if I've been communicating what I want to communicate, the question arises, well, can we end homelessness? And I think there's an assumption that maybe we can't. I believe we can as a community. And I want to explain why I think that. There's been work done by a group called Community Solutions, and they have a framework built for zero. They, for their work, they were awarded a $111 million MacArthur grant. And they are working with the Kansas Statewide Homeless Coalition to roll their framework out statewide. Within the Built for Zero framework, you need a quality by name list. So this is not Lucas standing up at a microphone saying, well, we think we have 10 to 30 chronic, and so that means we have 100. It is actually doing the hard work day in, day out to know each of these people by name and to know what kinds of housing needs they have. It means having housing provided, set up, and then the services. Particularly when you're thinking about the chronically homeless, we need them to be in housing so that they can receive services. You have to then provide the services. If you don't provide the services, it's unlikely that they'll be successful in that housing. But within that Built for Zero framework, functional zero has been achieved in 14 communities. There's 12 where it has been achieved for veterans only, and that's been the big first push. And part of the reason that that veterans has been a big push is that a lot of those services are in place, right? So through the VA, there's services in place. If we can get them housing, there's a pathway there, and it provides provides a role model or a test case for the rest of our populations. There's 5 communities where they have achieved functional zero for chronic homelessness, and then 3 where they've done it for both. Functional zero it's a very particular definition. It basically means you don't have more than 3 homeless people, because if we go back to my first slide, and I'm not going to do that to us, but we're talking about a possible future where homelessness is rare, brief, and non-reoccurring. That does assume that you will have people who fall into homelessness, but so that we have housing and services lined up so that when somebody does fall into homelessness, we can rapidly get them back on their feet. This is the framework that Lawrence is using, and I say that with some trepidation because we're close to Lawrence and we know that they have a dramatic homelessness issue. Because they have such a dramatic issue, they have worked very hard over the last 2.5 years to put together a very comprehensive plan. It's called A Place for Everyone. I should be a link attached into the agenda report. It's a really well thought out plan, and we're excited to see them achieve that. So how do you eat an elephant, right? It's a big problem. It's a big problem nationally for our community to think about finding the kind of housing that is necessary for 100 households. That's a big size problem for our community. So I would say you eat an elephant with friends, and you eat an elephant bite by bite and with a plan. So our friends, there's folks that have been doing this work for a long time. And I've got them listed alphabetically in the agenda report, and I'll go ahead and read them off. Blessing Box, ECAN, Elizabeth Layton Center, First Baptist, FRETSA, Hope House, Ottawa Ministerial Association, Ottawa Police Department, Ottawa Public Works Department, United Way, and USD 290, among others. I'm sure that that I'm not listing. Again, homelessness in the U.S. is a big problem. I don't believe it's unsolvable. There are models, we have good partners, and if our community takes it on a bite at a time, we can make progress. Oh, that's the laser. Sorry if I just lasered anybody. So I don't have any financial or legal considerations at this time for you. I want to thank you for your interest in possible responses to the local manifestation of the national homelessness crisis. The Homelessness Coalition is meeting May 21st at 1 p.m. at First Baptist. And I am also thrilled to say that you've been provided with a copy of the book Bridges Out of Poverty. It provides good guidance on how we can come together as a community and tackle poverty, and that's sort of way upstream of our chronic homelessness issue, but how we can move upstream and tackle poverty in order to build a more prosperous future together. And I would actually encourage any community member interested in this, please read this book, join the work, and I'm very excited to see where we can go. And I'd stand for any questions.
Director Neesite, I know this is going to sound heartless, but I also think it's somewhat pragmatic. But if we become too accommodative, might we attract more? And we certainly don't want more, but we certainly need to deal with the ones that are here. How would you address that?
So what I'm understanding from the national literature is that that is not often the case. That while it that housing costs are a much better predictor of homelessness than in the national conversation. It's San Diego has homelessness because because the weather is good, or Portland has homelessness because of drug policy that they adopted, and that when you actually go in and do data-driven research on it, the best predictor is not those things, but it's just housing cost. Because Lawrence is working so hard, even if we assumed that if we solve it locally, we're just going to end up with more homeless folks. Because Lawrence is working so hard, I think that would also be would reduce my concern. And then Johnson County is also launching new initiatives to be responsive to homelessness. So that would be my response, Mayor.
Well, I know that Lawrence, they cleared out an encampment, I believe, north of the river, about 80 or 90 tents, I guess they cleared them out, and I don't know where those people went at that point, but is that a concern that if Lawrence becomes too restrictive, that they'll go other locations around within?
So,
distance?
I think it could be. That is not the bulk of their plan. And so in a place for everyone, it is not primarily about moving people around, but in fact getting them into real housing so that they feel safe and secure. And I forget the dollar amount that Lawrence has talked about really committing to it. So I'm hopeful that that's not the case. I will also, and this is more anecdotal. I don't know that I don't know Lawrence's situation well enough to say too much other than anecdotally. Housing costs have gone up in Lawrence, right? It's for lots of folks, it's a very attractive place to live. Housing costs have gone up, and when I was talking with the assistant city manager in Lawrence, who's leading together with Douglas County, leading their program, he said, these are folks that I went to high school with. These are people from Lawrence. Now, is everyone from Lawrence? Probably not. But it is not that their entire problem has come in from somewhere else.
Good. Okay, any other questions? I also want to thank Pro Tem Allen is helping to serve on that committee
Yes.
as well. So I want to thank her for her dedicated service in that as well. We need to address it some way or another. If we don't, it'll get worse. I always think about you have to identify whatever your issue is before you can tackle it. And so we're in the process of identifying it, I guess, right now and tackle later, I suppose.
Director Neese, I appreciate the fact that Bridges Out of Poverty was provided to the city commissioners, and I would gladly, be a library to anybody who would like to read this book too, because I do think it's an important and a good strategy that we can utilize. And we've utilized this strategy in the past. Is it still something that is being utilized in our community that you know? Is there an active
It
Bridges
is
group?
not. It operated as Ripples, as
out
I'm
of
sure
this-
you're aware. So that was led by, as I understand it, 3 ladies who were doing it as part of their professional duties, and they all got new jobs at sort of the same time, and the ball fell. So I've had some conversations with folks who are considering how could we stand that back up, because I think as we look at just poverty in our community and its impact, right? Its impact on our schools, its impact on people's ability to afford housing, addressing it with that program would be very helpful. So those are conversations I'm having, and yeah.
So if citizens are certainly interested in being part of the solution, Ripples or Bridges Out of Poverty, that those strategies are certainly things that are being discussed and could call
Yes.
your department and
Please,
let you know
yep.
that they're interested in being part of that solution.
Yes, please. Thank you.
My concern comes into when the kids who are showing up for school every single day, but are literally living in their car with their parents. My concern is less for individuals who choose to be homeless. My concern is for the young adults and the children in our community that are being raised here as Ottawans and not being looked at as Ottawans because they are couch surfing or doing other things like that. And they deserve better than that, certainly.
Any other questions? I know we got some community members here as well that are helping to serve on that committee, so I want to thank you all too for your dedication for this as well. So I appreciate your willingness to work and find that solution that we're looking for, right? All right.
Thank you, Mayor.
Director Neese, thank you. We'll move on to, I guess, our city manager. Any other comments with you?
Honorable Mayor and Commission, will make this as painless as possible. I'll start off with the second slide, which is just since we're finishing on the homeless discussion, there'll be a meeting. We discussed this at our May 8th meeting last week, but there's been a meeting scheduled for Tuesday, May 21st at the First Baptist Church at 410 South Hickory at 1 p.m. We have our city representatives, Mayor Pro Tem Allen, Chief Weingartner and Director Neese. Chief's not able to attend, but there will be our law enforcement staff present to assist as well. And also, I want to take this time to point out that our community police officer, Josh Schwab, is active in this issue and is familiar with almost all of our local folks. And we also want to appreciate and take time to express our gratitude toward our co-responder, Megan Thomas, who assists us when needed as well. So if that's something that folks are interested in, we encourage them to attend. Provide you an update on the situation at 10th and Borough. We had a collaborative operation with our streets and our utilities, Public Works and Utilities, with the Street Stormwater Division and our Distribution and Collection Division. They did complete the removal of the brick and iron. Notice I say iron. Is it a stormwater flow? I mean, I don't know what you would call that, but it looks like some sort of old boiler or storage container that they pulled out of the ground there, almost like it's something out of a Lovecraft novel. And then I guess it was constructed around the existing sewer line. So it wasn't, we initially thought maybe it was the sewer line that caused the degradation, but you can tell that that's where the sewer line flowed through. So the craftsmanship that went into that at the turn of last century is remarkable. And certainly it's as we joked this morning, as we were kind of preparing for our utility director interviews with our superintendents and our crew leads, and that is a good beneficial reuse of city assets, because that likely came from the power plant. It's kind of what we might have believed there. So, but we replaced the 52 inch with 2 36 inches, so you're flowing a little bit more there than you were previously. And so we're hopeful that we'll have the road opened up this week, weather permitting. If not, it'll be next week. Wanted to highlight that we are anticipating the service agreement returning any day so that we can begin mowing operations. If not, it'll go to the next low bid. So the time is running out. So I'll present the contract update once we have a qualified contract in place. I want to highlight this week is Law Enforcement Week, and today is the National Peace Officer Day of Remembrance. And want to take the time to remember those that have given them their absolute most, and to their families that they leave behind. We often think about the officers, but it's the families that are left. We want to thank everyone who showed up yesterday for Pizza Hut, as the franchisee remitted the sales to the Ottawa Police Foundation. And then we want to encourage everyone to turn out tomorrow to support Yuri, our police canine, at Draws for Paws at Not Lost Brewing downtown. So that'll take place at Not Lost from 5 to 8. Want to highlight our activities for the past week in our talent acquisition team. We had 85 total applications. We did hire one. We made 2 offers. And so we currently have no positions available. Neighborhood services, this is since April. We have 33 active cases and have closed 21. And slowly going back to work in the old paper methods prior to April and incorporating them into Intergov, but it's non-urgent, non-important, so it's something that is an administrative task that we'll try and work on, but it's certainly not going to take us away from our primary focus. And want to highlight that our property improvement partner is Colson is doing wonderful, and we're happy to have him on board. And not reflected in here is hey, you may not be aware this is an issue, where that actually gets remedied. And so we're also looking, as we build our key performance indicators, incorporating that into our system as well, because it's kind of the ounce of prevention's worth the pound of cure. And so oftentimes people are just ignorant that there's a situation there. And other times we know they're trying to push it as far as they can, but that's why we try and always approach it with the honey or the carrot rather than the stick or the vinegar. And then, which Director Landis mentioned earlier, next week will be the electric fund. So I'm sure, hopefully nothing shocking occurs in the budget presentation. Sorry, I was channeling dad joke, Mr. Mayor.
Good one, good one.
So with that, if there are no questions for myself or another member of our team, that'll conclude my report.
Okay, anybody have any questions?
I think
On
Commissioner.
the talent acquisition, I just want to check in on the strategic communications manager posting.
Yes,
that we-
right now we have, because there is an overlap in responsibilities, what we've done is we're reevaluating what we're currently doing and what would need to occur. And that's something too that we will be discussing at a future meeting, is trying to flesh out exactly what the commission wants. Is it more of a technical aspect, or is it something that's more akin to brand management, marketing, and almost like a reporter type for telling the story? Or are we wanting to look at something that is, because the way it's currently written, there's an overlap with some existing positions, so we want to make sure that we're targeting things appropriately.
So was that poll, we're not,
Right,
Okay.
we've frozen that until we can assess what we actually need. And that's where I'll be coming back to you, so that we make sure that we're getting exactly what the expectation is. And so one of the things that we'll start presenting to is kind of a slideshow of what's occurred throughout the past week on social media, and in our objectives and key results that are part of our strategic alignment process. You'll see that actually what we're currently doing relative to cities our size is impressive, with the quality and the content and the volume of content. So we'll need to figure out exactly how we want to take that from good to great. And then also, one of the things that we discuss every other week is the algorithm and how that impacts what we show, because a lot of what we put out is not showing up in feeds. It's something that you have to actively seek out, and so needing to identify why that is and how we can look at, I don't know, SEO or whatnot. And I'm certainly happy to turn it over to Paul to answer some of the more technical nuances to how all of that works, if that's needed. Commissioner Kaler?
If you would go back a couple of slides for the police, the information for police week. Yes. So, and I wonder if Chief Weingartner, which, I mean, City Manager Selcott, you could certainly answer, but I wonder if Chief Weingartner may.
It's better to hear
answer a
from the
little bit
chief
better
than
for
from me,
The 16th, on Thursday. If individuals are interested in being a part of that, the Canine Support Program, is that, Chief Weingartner, is that simply just individuals who want to come down and participate in an adult beverage, or how does that work, and how is that structured?
There'll be non-adult beverages available as well.
Okay?
Yeah,
And
city manager can attest
so
that
if
from
you make
last
a
year.
purchase, there, they are making a commitment to making a donation.
Yes, and there'll be a jar that they collect additional donations on the bar, and we usually have a pretty good turnout from that too. So
Okay. And what time does that start?
5.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
And then a question about your SEO comment. Are we currently engaged in any SEO? Paul, or yes or no? I mean, you just can give me kind of a.
We don't pay for anything right now.
We don't pay for any search engine optimization. Okay.
I know that during like high volume storm events and stuff, we will do like Facebook targeting ads and that type of thing, but that's it.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions for city manager?
And thank you for that, because I didn't know if we did SEO or not.
Me neither. Now we both know.
Yeah.
Everybody knows.
Great. All right, thanks. Brian, let's go on to commissioner comments. Let's start with Commissioner Clayton.
I just will bring up again the National Peace Officers Remembrance Day. You know, in Ottawa, we've had some recently. In the past decade, we've had officers in Ottawa who are on that memorial. So it's just great to remember that. We do the proclamation at the beginning of the month. But it's great to remember it throughout the entire month. And then just thank you to Director Neese for all of his work with the Homeless Coalition, or there's a new name, Coalition to End Homelessness, I believe, on that for town as well. And that is all that I have.
Very good. All right, Commissioner Kaler.
Mine are personal comments today. I want to congratulate all the graduates, including my daughter, who graduated from high school on Saturday. And today she was telling me that she was already bored. And and I said, well, yeah, you shouldn't wish the time away, because time goes very fast. And I gave her a list of items, so if you have other items that she'd like to do, I think there are other board seniors right now until they start their summer jobs. And luckily, she's got a whole list now. And so congratulations to them. Also want to wish my best friend a happy birthday. And I think that does it. So it's all good in Ottawa.
All good stuff. Good. All right, Commissioner Crowley.
I have no comment.
All right, Pro Tem Allen.
Just in case anybody is wondering what is going on the river today, Overland Park Fire Department boat operations and rescue training is happening on the river, and so nobody's injured, and hopefully it'll stay that way, but so they are practicing that.
Fantastic. And I just want a few comments. The police award ceremony. Thank you, Chief Weingartner, for a good ceremony, good turnout. A lot of people were there, and it was great to meet our two newest police officers as well. So that's a good way. But anyway, appreciate having that event. A lot of good awards handed out, a lot of good recognition. We've got some wonderful people on your force today. I'm very proud of them, and they did a good job with all their awards. So thank you for having that. Second thing, Sister City, we're starting a partnership somewhat with FCDC to look into a Sister City arrangement. I'll get more details to you later, what we're looking at and any kind of financial obligations. So far, we've only spent about $200 just to get on the registry. But if we get into this more and more, we want to get the commissioners involved in this and see which direction we want to go with that. I was going to have Paul Bean speak a little bit to it but he left early here, so we'll bring more in the future. And also, what an honor it was to award Mary McMahon her proclamation at the nursing home the other day. I believe it was Monday. She 104, and I asked her, Mary, what's your secret? And she said, that's my secret to keep. And I thought, well, okay, so that tells me spunk, right? So I interpreted that as spunk is what's taken to live to be 104. I was hoping she'd say she had bacon and eggs every morning or something like that, but no. So we'll see where. But anyways, what a wonderful lady, really sharp lady. What was interesting about that day, I was subbing at the preschool at Lincoln Elementary, and I was dealing with 4-year-olds. And these kids were born in 2020, and I just visited with a lady who was born in 1920. I asked her who was the president when she was born, and it was Wilson at the time, but she's lived through 19 presidents and outlived most of them. So I'd say that's a pretty good accomplishment. But a wonderful lady, and we'll plan to do this whenever we have someone turning 100 or above. And I told her I plan to be back next year, so she said she promised to be there. So good for me, good for her. I'm looking forward to that too. Announcements, we got May 20 meeting, goal setting session. at 4:30 here at City Hall. We also have a city commission on May 22nd and May 29th. If there's no other business to come before the City Hall this morning, we are adjourned.